I'm going to play a clip. I want to play it right now because I'm not quite through talking about the aberrations when it comes to thoughts and teachings on the pre-trib rapture. Now, this is a clip from a 4-hour film made about a year and a half ago.
To say that the world is in a state of shock this morning would be to understate the situation. Suddenly and without warning, literally thousands, perhaps millions of people just disappeared.
What if the end of the world really isn't as so many have portrayed it? What if the church is not raptured to heaven before the Great Tribulation, as many are teaching?
People from all over this planet have simply vanished.
What if the church has been left ill-prepared to face the Antichrist and the mark of the beast? What if Tim LaHaye's claim that if the pre-tribulation rapture is false, then the blessed hope will become the blasted hope actually comes true for millions of pre-tribulationists? What if millions who have been led astray by the pre-trib teaching become part of the great falling away that Jesus warned would take place at that time? How is it that the pre-tribulation rapture teaching, which states that Jesus will take the church to heaven before the tribulation, is so popular, even though its leading advocates admit there is not one single verse of Scripture that actually teaches this new doctrine?
It is popular because it is the truth, and it's what the Bible teaches. And it's the blessed hope, not the blasted hope. Billy, your thoughts on this that you just heard?
There's that little bait and switch there, not one single verse.
Yeah.
I got specific messages basically on that accusation. There's not one single verse. It's called a red herring argument. Amongst other red herring arguments, there's people who, disagree with the rapture, don't even believe in the rapture because they say, well, I don't believe in the rapture because the word rapture doesn't appear in the Bible. Really? First of all, it's from the Greek word harpazo, which was translated later in the Latin Vulgate into, raptura, which eventually came the English word rapture. What are you talking about? But, oh, no, it's not in the Bible, rapture. And it's like, well, first of all, if that's your logic, let's put that to the test with all due respect. Did you know that the word Trinity is not found in the Bible? Do we reject the Trinity? The word millennium is not found in the Bible, technically. So, the teaching is in the Greek word there for 1,000 years, and do we reject that? No, here's one. I'd like to point this out. Did you know the word Bible is not in the Bible? So do we reject the whole Bible? So that's kind of crazy. But this teaser here, this is one of the popular ones that are thrown out there today, that there's not one single verse. And with all due respect, again, I like to say, okay, where do you want to start? You want to start Old Testament, New Testament? I'll let you pick, right? To me, the ones, I don't know how you can get around this specifically, is Revelation chapter 3, verse 10.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
And that is, talk about nailing it to the wall. It's, that Jesus speaking, of course, to the church of Philadelphia, and he says, since they've endured his command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come upon the whole world to test those who live on the earth, okay? And so he's promising these faithful Christians, in the immediate context, Philadelphia, but it's applicable to us today because we're Christians too, right? And he says that, hey, you're defending me, you're standing up for me, you're dealing with some general tribulation and problems. But I tell you what, here's my great promise to you. I'm going to keep you, I'm going to spare you from this specific hour of trial that's going to come to the whole planet. Now, if that's not speaking of the rapture and being kept from the hour of trial of the 7-year tribulation, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And of course, we break this down in great detail. An hour of trial, it doesn't mean literally 1 hour. It literally means a season, a time of testing. Again, the 7-year tribulation. Plus, we know this is not some localized event, okay? The Philadelphia church was being promised to be expunged from, like an earthquake. It's clearly, the context is this is a global event that tests those who live on the earth. This is a global event. It's not some local event. And again, the word to me that really nails it down is he uses the word to be kept from. He's dealing with two groups of people, the church, who's kept from, and those who are still on the earth. Okay, two different groups of people. And the church, he says, kept from, it's really awesome. It's the Greek word tereo ek. And talk about specific in the Bible. Tereo ek means you're not on the planet at all. Mm-hmm. This is Jesus' words I'm just working with. He's very specific with this promise. You will not be on the earth when this trial, the 7-year tribulation, comes. It's a fantastic promise, okay? And let me give you some analogies as to what tereo ek really means from Jesus. One of the analogies is like World War II, okay? Obviously, that was a trial. That was a season, right, a period that we went through in the whole world, okay, during World War II. And so if somebody said to you, I'm going to keep you from not just World War II, because that means you could be secluded somewhere, but I'm going to keep you from the time of World War II. In order for that to happen, you could not be on planet Earth during the entire period from 1941 to 45. To be exempt from the time is to be absent from the time that the event takes place. That's what Jesus is talking about here. A couple more. To be kept out of, this is the word there, I'll keep you out of this trial, Revelation 3:10. To be kept out of jail means that the person will not be behind bars. They're not going there, period. To be kept out of the swimming pool means that the person is exempt from getting wet. To be kept out of the army means you're not in the army at all. You're not serving, you're not doing nothing, you didn't get to go in, period. If a basketball player was kept out of the entire ball game, guess what? You didn't get to play at all. You saw zero action. You were not on the court, period. If a person put a sign on his property that says, keep out, okay, they don't want you on their property at all. Your presence will not be there, period. That's what Jesus used when he says to the church, I will keep you out of this hour of trial, the 7-year tribulation, to test those, not the church, who are still on the earth. It is one of the most clearest examples of the pre-trib rapture position, and for people to make this statement that there's not one single verse, again, with all due respect, what Bible are you reading?
Well, again, let's look at some other red herring objections, because there are lots of them, and let's move to this Margaret MacDonald, John Darby, and what we believe is a new teaching. Oh my goodness, the early church greeted each other with Maranatha because they were hoping it would be happening back then, but some say it's a new teaching, perhaps as recent as 1830. John Darby, Margaret MacDonald. Well, then what do we do with the pre-wrath version, which came along in the 1990s, for Pete's sake? That's far newer than anything in the 1830s. John Darby did not receive it from Margaret MacDonald, nor did he start it. Besides that, Margaret MacDonald was a false teacher who believed the church was already in the tribulation. MacDonald saw the church being purged by the Antichrist. I don't know how this all came about, Billy Crone, and that's who I'm talking to for the entire hour. I'll say more about his products here as we move along. But this whole red herring, I think it's the biggest one out there, Billy, other than the one we've already talked about. It's supposedly not in the Bible. Is this Margaret MacDonald, John Darby? Talk to us about it, because it is complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah, it is, and frankly, with all due respect, we couldn't wait to expose this one, because this one, after we begin to investigate the facts, and that's what we're supposed to do as Christians, be Bereans, my synopsis that I share in the book and the videos is, okay, with all due respect, this is either the worst case of investigation in the history of mankind, those that would say that this is where the pre-trib position came from, or, frankly, you're lying, because this is one of the most easily things to refute, this myth that John Darby got the pre-trib rapture in 1830 from Margaret MacDonald. First of all, we went on location there in Scotland, and we went there on location and shot right next to John Darby's gravesite. So we did our homework as well. We went above and beyond, and we exposed what was really going on during that time frame and in those locales. And you could see it with your own eyes or read it with the book. It's clearly, easily, historically documented that John Darby did not arrive at his understanding of the pre-trib position in 1830, as the accusation goes, the false accusation. It's clearly historically documented that he began to understand that in 1827, when he was holding up and healing up after an accident. In 1827, that's when he began to see a distinction between the church and Israel. It's historically documented. So they're 3 years off base. Okay, number one. Number two, he did know about Margaret MacDonald because there were some revivals going on in the area, and unfortunately, as goes with some revivals in history, not all of them are legit. And so he knew about her, investigated, and it's on record. Even Wikipedia records this historical fact that what she was doing on record was demonic, and he wanted nothing to do with her.
Demonic.
And that's easily to demonstrate. Number three, I'm going, how do you guys keep doing this? And in fact, how do you produce, and this is why it's being popularized, how do you produce a whole documentary on this red herring argument when this comes into play? Number three, you can get an actual copy of her so-called utterance. And when you get the utterance, in fact, we got it. In fact, when we were in Scotland, for a fact, we got a girl there with a Scottish tongue, and she read it, and you could see it with your own eyes in the language. But when you read her utterance, and it's not even speaking of pre-trib. It's post-trib, with a kind of a partial rapture feel. And it's like, what? And this is your whole basis that you keep throwing out there, hoping it's going to stick? It reminds me of the old axiom, you repeat a lie loud enough, long enough, often enough, people will believe it. And so it is with this John Darby, Margaret MacDonald connection. For the life of me, I can't believe that this keeps getting recycled. And then, even after exposing this, if people still want to promote that, I'm sorry, you're being dishonest.
I agree with you, Billy. And this seems to be the primary argument that people are throwing back at us is this Margaret MacDonald and John Darby. It's just been tragic. I've watched it over the years, and I think it's been fairly effective, even though it's all a lie.
I was just thinking that every position, except the pre-trib position, goes against the patterns of God, too. It goes against God's rescue of the Israelites in the Red Sea coming out of Egypt. It goes against taking Lot out of Sodom and Gomorrah, the two spies, and on and on. We have so many instances of his rescue, and I can't imagine how people could think that it would be post-trib, mid-trib, pre-wrath, all those things. When you think about Paul's admonition for us to watch for the blessed hope, why would we watch for the blessed hope when we're in the middle of the tribulation period with 100-pound hailstones, et cetera, coming down on us?